So my name is Natalie Garrett Brown, and I have an outdoor site dance practice which goes under the project name of Enter in Habit, and I work with two other artists, a dance artist, Amy Voris, and a photographer, Christian Kipp. And for about 10 years now we've had an on and off project that's worked in this space. So this is the underpass as one of the junctions at the Ring Road in Coventry city centre. And we began working here as part of a festival that was run by an organisation called Decoder, and they had a summer dancing festival. And the first work we made here, which was a durational improvisational performance, was part of welcoming people to the city. And if I remember correctly, the interest was to perhaps introduce people to aspects of the city that they might not otherwise know, understand, or perhaps feel comfortable in moving around and in between. I think historically the underpass has been seen as something that's confusing to visitors, so it was a way of introducing that to people here for a summer dancing project. So when we worked here about 10 years ago, there was a staircase here, and it was one of our performance scores. We work with improvisational scores, was moving up and down the staircase and moving through back into the main circuit of the underpass. There's been shifts and changes in how this operates, this space, and so this wall has appeared in the last 10 years. And I just find that really interesting, how you can kind of track a city's relationship to its planning and its design through these small shifts that are happening in the underpass. This brick and this colour is a real feature of the city. You see this wall in a lot of places and spaces once you notice it as part of its kind of foundation. We had a writer with us working at that time called Nikki Pollard, who was also a dance artist, who has sadly passed away. But she had a whole writing practice that she brought into the project, and this was one of her favourite places to leave little bits of writing and engage with participants. What I like here is the fact that you've got all this greenery, or what we've worked with, but then you've got this kind of the dynamic of the traffic and the circuits. So that's what we've kind of been working with, just in terms of why we might come to this spot at this moment in time. So when we're working outdoors, we're drawing on a number of processes and lineages, I suppose, that come from dance practice, so choreographic practice. So that's improvisation, but it's also things such as authentic movement, which brings into play how you relate to one another and therefore the space, and perhaps people that are passing by and then become part of the work. Also, when we made the original performance score, this was the end, so we disappeared off into the city from this place. And some people followed us, some people went and had their own walk, so it was just a kind of invitation to go back out into the city from the underpass.
So I did my PhD about a site-based practitioner called Joan Davis. So we did a lot of outdoor work in landscapes around counties of Dublin and Wicklow. So that would have been kind of my first introduction to working outdoors. And she works with two different approaches. One is an authentic movement practice, so that is becoming really aware of your own sensory experience and being able to witness it, observe it, seeing how you respond to environments, what impulses you have in those sites. And then the body-mind centering practice she works with, which is more anatomy based, so looking at how bones and muscles and organs and fluids, what different possibilities they give to movement in the body, but also like how they interact with the environment around us. And then I started studying with a site-based artist called Sandra Reeve, And her work is, to me, it seemed to be more engaged with the external environment first. So I would say Joan's approach was starting from your body first and how it relates to the environment. And Sandra's work seemed to me to start from positioning yourself in relation to what's around you. So she studied with an Indonesian dance artist called Prapto, and his approach is called Emerta movement. So, so she kind of has these lenses on dynamics. So one is like position. So where do I position myself in the space? How do I transition between positions? You know, am I very direct? Am I ambling along? And there's many others like point, line and angle. So how do the angles in my body relate to the angles in the environment? I think niche is an interesting one to use as well, like finding a niche in the environment that I really am attracted to and drawn to. Maybe there's some story around it I like. I feel safe there, you know, things like that. To me, it's really important to start indoors where there's less distraction and information and sensory information, and prepare my body before going out to a site to become attentive to what I'm carrying with me before I go outdoors. So I have that kind of ongoing practice drawing on those two teachers. And so I bring that to any site-based project I've done in the city. So like one of them would be, I brought Sandra Reeve to Coventry and she did a retreat here. So we had, I think there was about 15 artists, different disciplines, and we did sort of movement practices in the morning, or at different times actually with Sandra, and then the artists would go off and find sites they were drawn to and create work there. So this is one of the first sites we came to with Sandra, and at the time this building here was just being constructed, and so it was a building site. So we were actually exploring lines and angles here. So seeing what lines there are and angles in the space, what points there are. So I'm sure it looked quite abstract, I'm sure. But the builders started shouting at us. I think they were shouting, "Get a life" or something. And they had their camera phones and they were recording. And it was actually quite funny. I don't think they meant it in a mean way. I hope not, anyway. So I find this site quite interesting because, well, there's so many factors to it. It's like a park environment, but it's also like right by the road. So sometimes I think it would be nice to come down here like with my lunch at lunchtime, but there's something quite exposed by being out in the road. So when we were doing site work, we'd kind of, you know, go right up to the perimeter and you could literally walk out onto the road there. I think what was really important to me was when I arrived, the company Dakota were still going, curated by Katie Coe and Lily Hayward-Smith and Jenna Hubbard and Amy Barras were involved. And it was very exciting because they brought really interesting work into Coventry, and a lot of it was site-based, but it was also like site artists who were spending periods of time in sites getting to know them and returning like several years. So their relationship with Coventry was built over time, and the kind of work they were creating was subtle, and it wasn't kind of obvious or spectacular or things like that, but it was really in depth, and it came from a real knowledge of the city over time. I think it'd be fantastic if they shut the ring road for a day and you could do site work all around the ring road, because actually you can drive around it within 10 minutes apparently, so it's not that big. It just seems like it is, because you're always kind of on the edges of it and going around it and trying to avoid it. Well, certainly me, when I'm driving, I try to avoid it as well. And in the Sensing the City project, the principal investigator, who's Nicholas Wybrow, has sort of written about imagining what the ring road could be if it was closed, it could be used by pedestrians, and maybe you could grow gardens there and all sorts of things. So I think it would be interesting to have a ring road festival where you sort of close it down for a day, and yeah, we could do site work there. That'd be great.